Another Paper Stack podcast. Rick Allen, Brett Berkey here. And, this is a follow-up, but we are super excited today to have Tim Griffith and Lucy Hernandez from FCI Servicing on the show. Tim was on just a couple weeks ago, but we had such a great response, and people had some follow-up questions, so it's like, wow, there's a whole nother episode we have to do.
Yeah, I kind of felt kind of bad because I was like, we're having this podcast. It was at 1 that we had to schedule for. And I think I put in the Facebook groups at like 10. I didn't check it till like 3 in the afternoon. I was like, oh my gosh. There's like all these questions. I was like, well, hope Tim's cool with another episode because we're going to have to do a follow-up because we didn't cover any of those.
So, yeah, it's good. Lucy's on this one. Lucy, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us, about you, what you do at FCI, how long you've been there, because I know who you are, and I'm sure some of our listeners do, but a lot of people don't.
Yes. So my name's Lucy Hernandez. I've been here with FCI for about 7-8 years. I started off in the customer service department, kind of have worked in almost every single department since. Now I am working alongside Tim and Gordon in the marketing and then technology department as well. So I definitely have had my fingers in everything, have learned the ins and outs of FCI, and can answer questions all day long, so call me. Good.
I'm glad. That is good because we have quite a few questions that you and Tim are going to have to field today. That we're some of them pretty pointed, pretty candid, but we had a lot of questions come in, and so let's jump right into it. I guess the first question we had is, what is the biggest weakness in the space, and what are the goals for changing that? So, like, what's the biggest weakness that you see for servicers, and what are your goals to change them, and what are the areas, I guess kind of the areas of opportunity of where you guys can get better?
Sure. So I'll jump in on that one. So I would say the biggest weakness is just technology across the board. I'm painting with a broad brush here, but it's like if regular tech companies are changing every year or two, then financial steps behind that. And I feel like servicing is, 3 or 4 years removed from that. So I feel like servicing and just our industry runs, again, painting with a broad brush, 5 or 6 years behind of what's happening out in the other forms. So, that's where I got to tip my hat to Paper Stack. They're way ahead on the trading platform because, not too long ago, it was just Excel sheets or email or, you know what I mean? That, and it's similar. There's a lot of legacy servicing software out there that you're stuck with this monolithic system. So that's where, I'm biased to say it, but that's where FCI is the leader in that. We have our own customized software and we keep trying to push the envelope forward. We're introducing API. It's it's a snowball. It's going slow, but it's coming out, and the live login, that sort of thing. But technology trends a little delayed, but I'd like to think that FCI, Paper Stack, that we're at the forefront of that race. So that's for sure the biggest weakness is getting everyone to come together on the technology front. Okay.
Yeah. That makes definitely total sense to me is technology. It's crazy. It moves fast too.
Yeah.
That's one thing we know. Okay. This is actually a good one because I think this one ties right into pricing on loans, and some people have some misconceptions. They'd love to know why you guys price non-performing loans that are client managed higher than a performing loan when they're much more hands-on. And I kind of think I know the answer to this, but I can't wait to hear what you guys say because that's the very same question I actually asked FCI, and so take that one.
Sure. So I can jump in on that one. So I think it would be risk. So we have to keep track of them closely, regardless of who's handling that. We do still have to make sure that we're placing the appropriate flags. That you're keeping us that we're staying in communication. So they are a lot riskier than those that are performing loans. So that's what it is.
Performing's basically money in, money out, and then non-performing's much more difficult to service.
Yeah. And even if it is client managed, there's still the risk on your end is still very substantial. And almost, I would imagine almost that if it's a client managed NPL, it's actually probably more risky than if it's an FCI managed NPL.
That's
because,
exactly right.
Because you guys know exactly what's going on in the process. You are you're very aware of the parameters, the rules, the regulations. I mean, you guys are strictly governed versus when it's a client managed. I just imagine that you're like, look, I hope they know what they're doing because ultimately your license is on the line.
Oh yeah.
So, not to I'm sure one of the questions is going to come up about like why are certain timelines this way or why doesn't FCI? I'm sure it's not going to be worded this way, but like read my mind of what I want to do, and that's another reason is if someone just starts foreclosure on a client managed and doesn't tell FCI, then all our statements, all our information that's going to the borrower is going to be wrong, and then somewhere we're going to have to see that paths got crossed because they didn't communicate, and stuff like that is happening. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for the borrower. It's not good for the lender, and it's certainly not good for FCI. So communicate when you do that.
To keep us informed. So not only is it a bigger risk for us, it's a bigger risk for the lender. We have to make sure that we stay on top of that. You keep us informed. So if you're managing the workouts on your end, keep us informed of any changes. That way we can again place the appropriate flags and send out the appropriate documentation. Yeah,
you know what? It's also you guys are a little bit unique in that you actually allow clients to do client managed NPL. So there's some servicers out there. They're like, no, we're the ones managing it. And so the simple fix to that is I think I would always, when I was with FCI and still am and have loans, I just copy them on all the emails that are discussed about it. And it's like they're always in the loop. And there's no reason not to keep the servicer in the loop because ultimately they're the ones who, at the end of the day, they're going to be talking to the borrower a lot of the time.
That was my question. We're going
to input client. We're going to input that into our notes as well. Yeah. So then it's like an archive for you. So when you go and check on the website, so it's nice to have a little fallback there.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. What holds off the timeline for payoffs and reinstatements? So I wonder with that question by Chris, what are the timelines for that? What would delay something in that process? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Oh yeah. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
You go ahead.
Okay, so we do have to process these in the order received. So that's one of the most important things to know. We get your payoff, but we do have to process everything in the order received. We did just recently update our system, so you should have this payoff within a few hours. If not same business day, within a few hours. But we still need to get lender broker approval. So we get a lot of we often get that angry call, where's my payoff at? Well, you still haven't, we still haven't received that approval from the lender. So that's where the delay, is honestly, that is where the delay usually is, that miscommunication or not the inability to get that back to us within a good time frame. That's what I think.
Yeah, we're going to sound like broken records that it all boils down to communication and just keep us, whatever send it to your servicer too. Because the more information that goes around, it works better for all three parties, borrower, lender, and servicer. And then when that happens, the chance of your return getting better, so that's what we're in this for, right?
It's
increase.
It's funny. I think that key says communication. There's another one on here that it was from Chris again. He's like, did you know that if a borrower starts paying again and it's a performing loan, they don't switch it back and still charge you the $40 for performing loan client managed. And I think that all wraps into the communication of letting them know, hey, I'm going through a workout.
Exactly. So as soon as you let us know, we will switch it back. So as long as the loan is less than 3 months behind, so if you were able to work something out with them, or we received payments on it and now they're less than 3 months behind, then basically at that point we would place them back into their selected performing program, which would either be their $15 a month base fee program, their standard basic, or our high touch performing, which is a little bit more hands on, but still for performing programs at $35 a month.
Okay. Yeah.
Base fee.
Do you want to field that one, Brett?
Which one?
This big meaty one there.
Jeez. All right.
or you want to study it and I'll move on to a
Yeah,
different one?
it's like this long. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody else asked, why are some servicers licensed and others not? I mean, I have that. Oh, I saw the eyes go up for Lucy. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that because it's something I've wondered too.
Sure. You have to pay a test to receive licensing. So some servicers do not want to go through the process, while others may have done something non-compliant, which had their licensing removed for that state. Here at FCI, we have over 150 different licenses in all 50 states, which we are renewing and increasing constantly. We take compliance really seriously here. I cannot, enforce that a lot. Compliance is everything to FCI.
So I'll stretch on that too. It costs a fortune to be licensed in all 50 states. Mm-hmm. You have to take tests, and then the part is being audited. And then it gets even worse where we have like debt collectors licenses in some states. But then if we modify a loan, you can call it what you want. Some say that it's just revenue generating for the states, but then they'll say, oh, you modified a loan, you need an origination license. Well, FCI doesn't originate any loans. We don't make we're strictly a servicer, but now for whatever reason, the state requires a origination license. So that's more money, more tests, more to keep up on. And it's a lot to deal with. And then, I think one of the honest answers why some servicers aren't licensed is because if you're flying under the radar and you're not going to get caught, then maybe it's worth the risk. And,
of course, yeah.
That's for each to decide. But
we would never you can only assume why somebody else is doing it. I don't know what somebody else's business model is or what's going on there. But it's important. You have to be licensed. Right? It's called a licensed servicer. It's like you have to use licensed servicers. At least I prefer to use licensed servicers. I don't use non-licensed because it's just a law. It's a requirement. They got to be licensed.
Well, there's times where this happened. I want to say there was a state and they wanted a very specific license that we thought the state license had covered, and they said no. And we had to return all the payments for 2 or 3 years. FCI ended up writing the check because it was our fault, which is something that's something we pride ourselves on. If it's our fault, not the lenders, will write the check. Other way around, that's we're not going to write the check. But we had to refund the borrower because of this case, because they proved that we didn't have this very specific license that we didn't think we needed. We had to send the payments back because technically we were servicing as an unlicensed servicer in that one little, particular of not having that strange license in that one particular state. So that's always the fear, that if you're servicing with an unlicensed servicer, you might be on the hook to, they've been performing for 2 or 3 years, you might have to send it back. So I don't know if that's true across all states, but that's what happened to us.
That's a scary proposition.
Scary.
As an investor, that's a scary proposition. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's great that you guys have all the licensing and that you're continually advancing. So,
well, I had a quick question about the licensing. What's the deal with Hawaii? Because I know in Hawaii you actually have to have a place of business in Hawaii. Is that true?
So it keeps varying. So FCI doesn't, and we have the Hawaii license. So what keeps going around, this is like the talking point of all the conferences, and I want to say it was Ohio that just tried that as well, is they said you needed a brick and mortar location.
Yeah.
But they didn't. It was like everyone was ripping their hair out. Did brick and mortar location mean in Ohio or just somewhere in the United States to service Ohio? And then all the servicers were putting their heads together because it was going to send shockwaves through the industry. What are we supposed to do? And someone had emailed their, whatever licensing board, and they said, no, you need a physical location somewhere in the United States. We all breathed a sigh of relief. So that's what it is right now. I mean, that is the fear that we're going to have to open 50 offices in 50 states. But so far, thank God that that's not the case.
I have a plan for that when that happens. I have a workaround for you on that.
I see a side business right there. All the servicers come together and just get one
co-working space and this one address.
Yeah. Or UPS drop boxes.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay, next on my list here is what are the biggest risks of not using a servicer to service your note?
asking for a friend is what it said. Not saying they do it.
So I'll jump on that one.
Yeah.
So servicing is just one of those things that, I've been here almost 10 years working full time, and I feel like I only know, 25 or 30% of it. So my dad is the one who owns FCI, started it in 1982, and he is just an encyclopedia for this. And I mean, he's got over 30 years experience in it, but the idea that you could go in without that level of experience, and I mean, there's different rules for when you self-service. They're easier on you, but to go through and I would just be a nervous wreck that I would send some sort of statement wrong or not communicate or not notate properly. It's just, $15 to service a performing loan, the headache alone, that's
Sure.
where I'm at. There's too much that could go wrong is my thing. There's too many T's that need crossed and I's that need dotted. That, I mean, I work for a servicer, so of course I'm going to say this, but
you're also a note investor.
True. And I've never made a collection call on one of my loans. I know some people like to do that. I do not like getting on the phone. I don't want to be yelled at, or I don't want to hear a sad sob story because I'll probably fold. I let the professionals deal with that. So that's my personal model is I like that passive money, that check that comes to my, mailbox every month on a performing loan. I don't want to be in the trenches. So that's why I work with a servicer.
Right. And just to touch on that a little bit, you don't, as Tim as a note investor doesn't have to worry about the ever-changing rules of servicing. So we actually have our own internal compliance team and auditing team that are always staying on top of all of this for us. So lenders don't have to, and brokers don't have to. We handle all the servicing, so they don't have to.
Great.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is a huge one here, and I think communication will probably tie into this, but what ways can an investor make service onboarding smoother? Like, what can we do as investors just to make that process seamless?
So I'll jump on that one. Yeah, it is communication, but it's also having so a problem we're having is people fill out the setup forms. They just kind of rush through them, or they just send their documents. It's not that you have to have them in order, but it's also know what you're sending. Like if you're just sending half of it, then someone has to go through, decide what half isn't in there, figure out what was filled out wrong. So it's just it's sort of organization as well. Just have your ducks in a row and know what you bought, know what you have, and it'll be a smooth process. I mean, it's just like filing your taxes, right? If you have your receipts in order, it's going to be a lot smoother than on, April 14th or whatever the new date is, scrambling to find all your medical deductions or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's very similar.
We do have some, steps, I guess, set in place to make it that much easier too. And we, since I'm the, one of the main point of contacts for all of our new investors, I always point them this direction, is there is a loan servicing checklist available for them. So it's very detailed, but it's very bullet point after bullet point after bullet point of the things that we'll need in order to make the boarding smoother. And then just to touch on what Tim said, a lot of people just rush through it. Everything can kind of be packaged in an email, but then you have 3, 4, 5 different emails going about the one loan, possibly multiple loans. So communication can get messy. So we definitely encourage our lenders, brokers to go through that checklist and, kind of package everything. That way, everything's that much smoother.
Do you have a link that you could send to us so we can share it in the show notes?
Sure.
Here? So
Definitely, I could do that.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We will put that in the show
that'd be
notes. I know we kind of felt or saw I don't know if it's so much for the initial onboarding, but the servicing transfer requests. We kind of saw an issue at PaperStack, and I mean, I'm sure you guys know, we kick off every transaction with an email that notifies outgoing, incoming. Hey, this is it. And I think that's been kind of helpful as being just sort of that next level of communication for the users.
It does help, and our team really enjoys that email because it gives us a heads up, especially if it's an internal transfer, gives us a heads up, hey, this is going to happen. That way I can jump on it, speak to whoever, if it's a new investor, jump on it, speak to them, kind of get, guide them through, the links, the different forms, and then our programs as well. So definitely appreciate that email very much.
Cool. Good. Glad go. I wasn't prompting you for that, but it's good to hear that it works.
Yes, it's great. I love it.
Okay, we kind of been talking about this now, but we will put this out there. What are the best ways for them to communicate, which being your clients, to communicate with the servicer? What is the preferred method? What should they be communicating? Open road.
It's totally email right now. It is because we like having the history, and if something goes wrong, we can go backwards. Mm-hmm. I know there's an internal chat system that they can do as well. It's utilized a lot less. And then what we're going to start doing as well is in these systems, you can push notes through the API. That's kind of the next step of that. But I would say email. Phone calls take longer, harder to keep a history of. I mean, everything's recorded here, but just email makes it easier just for people to go down, paste them into the notes. Just keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. What specific steps do you take to get a non-performing loan to pay off or to do a workout?
Do you want to jump in on that
industry?
one?
Go for it.
Okay. So, great. So there's two so once your loan goes non-performing, there's going to be two non-performing programs that lenders have typically pre-selected. So we have that full collection servicing program, which the concept of that is that we start rapid compliance outreach to the borrower to try and obtain a resolution. The resolutions that are, laid out and that the lender can kind of choose from would be to attempt to reinstate, do a forbearance plan, loan modification, cash for keys, deed in lieu, etc. If a resolution we're not able to accomplish one within 120 days of boarding or transferring into that program, then you have the option to either begin foreclosure within that program or with your selected attorney, or you can transfer it into that limited collections program we were speaking of, where the lender will take on that role to try and do a workout with the borrower. So there are, we do follow a very strict schedule, which I'd be happy to share with you if you would like to share with your listeners. We follow a very strict schedule. And then once, we've tried everything on there, we basically give you the options. Would you like to keep it here? Would you like to try it yourself? Let us know. And then we'll go from there.
Cool. Okay.
That was thorough. That's good.
You want to go tackle that monster now, Brett?
I kept reading it over and over, and I just was wondering if I'm just going to read it straight out, exactly what I was reading.
Sounds perfect. Go for it.
Wonder if the bookkeeping on their end is more complicated because, I guess their end is talking about the servicers, more complicated because of accounting for late fees, interest occurring differently than the AM schedule, dealing with partial payments, or having to reject them and the like. When I think about it, I think it would be more work to keep all the numbers straight on an NPN than to just collect and apply payments accordingly to the AM. I'm not saying it's enough extra work to warrant the totality of additional fees, but I think it's extra work. It's extra work even not talking to the borrower. I don't know if that was a question. I think that was a statement. I'm looking for the question mark in it. There's only...
I'm thinking what they're saying is wrong. It seemed like non-performing loans should be priced less than performing loans because of the accounting that goes into moving all the different buckets that are associated with a loan.
I think you did a good job of identifying what Brett was trying to say.
I just read it verbatim.
Yeah, I know.
So I could understand how on the surface it would seem that way, that if a performing loan is coming in, then you have to move, the principal bucket, the interest bucket, the paid to date out, the date received, all those sorts of things. See if there's late fees, different fees associated with it. But that process with our customized system is, it's not completely automated, but it's as close as it gets. Checks go through our money room, the images of that go to our payment processing. And if that number matches what the regular payment is, it basically auto applies it. So that's just all system stuff. Non-performing is a whole different ball game of, I know it sounds backwards, but non-performing, there's a lot more items to move, make sure they're in or out. If they cross certain dates, then you have to do CFPB calls again. And those calls are 3 calls over 3 different times of the day. It's like this wave pattern. And you will rarely get, this is one of those things that if I was taken out of context, it would make us sound terrible. So please don't take me out of context.
No, that's why we got video and audio, so it can't be taken out of context.
FCI gets served a lawsuit almost every day. And that's not because we do our job bad. It's because borrowers, it's just like the world we live in. Every commercial, every billboard is how you can sue someone for something. So everyone tries and takes a shot. And it's ridiculous. We have like a 99.9% win rate. So that's fantastic because we do our job by the book, exactly how the rule is. But of those lawsuits that come in, I would guess almost 100% of them are from the non-performing loans for whatever reason. And it's just a way to try and not pay your bill or get free money. And because this has happened on my personal loans, and it's so frustrating, is we'll see in the notes that they told a collector, I'm paying an attorney to try and beat this. And it's like, you could just send me those payments and I'd happily work with you. I'd give you a modification. Like, don't be sending thousands of dollars to an attorney to try and get your loan wiped away, because it's probably not going to happen, next to 0%. And now you're out that money and you still owe us money for the loan. So that's why non-performing costs more than performing.
That makes total sense. This one's super interesting to me. This one really piques my interest. So there's a little bit of a backstory on it and then some questions. So I had a servicer say that they could not board some seller finance notes because the notes were considered to be high-priced mortgage loans, and the previous owners of the notes had not structured the notes to have escrow or tax provisions, and the notes were originated between 2014 and 2020. One, can you talk to us? There's a lot there to chew on in just the backstory. What's a high-priced mortgage loan? That'd be my first question, because I'm sure people out there don't know what that is. And then is this really an issue that FCI would say, yeah, you can't board this because it was a high-priced loan?
Sure. Lucy, do you know the exact similar box that a high-priced mortgage loan falls in? I know that it's something about these are dreaded at just across the world, high-priced mortgage loans, but it's something about the payment to, do you know the exact formula?
Oh, no, I don't. I'm not off the top of my head. But I can find the information.
We can pull the notes for you, but basically what it boils down to is I'm pretty sure I know the story of that one. And there's all these, so it's like a high price mortgage loan is XYZ, and it has something to do, just off the top of my head, it has something to do with the way the payments are to maybe the value of the property. I'm not 100% sure, but go ahead.
But if the lender can prove that there's an exception, then we would take them on.
So when they made this high price mortgage loan rule, there's all these lists of exceptions. So what happens is you send a loan into boarding for FCI. It falls within that box. That's an HPML. We cannot board HPMLs, high price mortgage loans. So what we'll do is we send a form letter back to the person who sent that in. We said, hey, this has been identified as an HPML. We can't board it. But here are the ways that disqualify it to be an HPML. And if you can show one of these, however many ways that one of these is true, we're happy to board it. So for an example, someone will say, they won't know that they bought an HPML. And then we'll say, okay, here's, XYZ on what disqualifies. And they say, well, mine's a rural property. And then we see that it is, boom, it's boarded. So I'd hope that most of them are disqualified from HPMLs, but
and that kind of answers.
That's basically the short version.
Well, that answered the other question. The question that was in here: are there any exemptions allowed out there? And it sounds like you just said, there are some exemptions out there, and there's workarounds through it.
Correct. And I'm sure you guys. I don't want to be quoted as saying that, actually. I think there's a way to modify the loans to get it out of an HPML, but I'm not an attorney, nor do I board these, and don't quote me on that. So I think there's ways around it. I find most things in this business that if you're honest and want to get it done, there's ways that benefit the borrower, which will benefit you in the long run. And I know that sounds, new agey and like, we're a charity, which we're not, but it is true that if you modify them after making enough payments, you probably will make more money in the long run. Yeah, it's something like that.
Definitely. So I think that's all the questions we had. Any final parting thoughts that you guys want to say? Oh, I wish somebody would ask this question, or anything along those lines?
Well, so from my experience, and I feel like I said this in the last one, but I'll say it again. You got to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So when Lucy sends that servicing checklist, so we'll send the schedule of foreclosure, the form letter for the HPML, and the servicing checklist. It's something to think about when you're buying loans on PaperStack. If someone, can't prove the chain of assignments, or,
Don't have a payment history.
something like that, or they won't give you the servicing notes, those are typically red flags. It's something to think about in that regard. But if people have those and it's already good to go, it's silly to say, but the knowledge really is power. It just puts all the odds in your favor. So
awesome.
That makes sense.
yeah, that's the closing.
Cool. Lucy,
good.
anything
That's good.
from you, Lucy?
Just, I guess the theme of our conversation was communication. Communicate with us. We'll communicate back with you. We will, we have different ways to do so. Just so please communicate with us. We're happy to help you.
Awesome.
I guess that's mine.
Well, that's
And then
good.
we're going to put Lucy's extension. She's the head point of contact. So when you bring a new loan in, you'll most likely talk to her. So her email and extension will be there. So if you have any questions, on bringing your loan over, prices, whatever,
Call me.
All Lucy.
Email me. Call me.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, hey, thank you guys so much for coming back on, spending a little more time with us. Lucy, it was good to
Finally
be
meet you.
face to
Yes, good to
face.
finally meet you.
Yeah, for sure. You guys can check them out, FCI Servicing, and there's a new website now.
Yeah, so that's a good bow on this. The state of New York didn't like the word trust in our website, so to keep up with licensing and compliance, we changed our website to myFCI, so myfci.com. So that was
I like
better
it.
to keep the compliance people happy.
I like
I know
that.
it sounds a little smoother, I think.
I have a little ring to it.
Yeah,
my
me too.
God.
Yeah, I like it. So
Yeah.
awesome. Well,
Maybe it's a blessing.
Yeah, there you go.
trust FCI. I trust them. I have trusted them. Whether or not it's in their name, I think it's good. So thank you guys for listening. We will have a new episode up within the
Yeah,
next
these are
week
going
or
to
so.
be back to back. So I want to have this follow up before we put out the other one together. So it's going to be right after another. Boom, boom, boom. So they could both at
Awesome.
the same time. So they watch the first one, understand FCI's whole, and then have these great questions answered so they can understand why they should have their loans with you guys. So
Awesome.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Nice seeing you. Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a great one.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.